as GCE, and I have the pleasure and I'm very happy to represent them here today. My name is Eugenia, and yeah, so some of you might know us already. GCE is the largest coalition of youth-led networks representing 460 national organizations across 47 countries in Europe. We advocate for the youth and raise awareness in climate and environment-related issues. Also at GCE, we strongly believe that the circular economy is a priority that needs to be addressed. And because our way of producing and consuming has reached its limits, and it's urgent for us to rethink the economic models and to mitigate our impact over the environment. We are also convinced that the younger generations have a role to play in the circular economy and in the transition. Therefore, this event organized by us today testifies to this engagement of young people in the circular economy. And so the objective of today is to discuss concrete actions that the youth can undertake to support the circular economy. And today's inputs will actually be the basis of a reflection paper that we will release at GCE by September. We would like this document, this paper, to be a mainspring and facilitator for youth engagement, but also a document, a resource document for policymakers to identify key measures to support young Europeans' initiatives. The event today will be organized as follows. You can also see it on the screen. We will start with some introductory remarks, and after that, we will have a panel discussion that will set the scene for the circular economy in Europe. Then the audience will be divided into 4 breakout sessions where we will discuss concrete solutions for the youth to engage. And finally, after these sessions at 2:15, we will all come back here to the plenary for the conclusion and for the closing remarks. Okay, now to pursue the introduction, I'm very pleased to give the floor to Ms. Delara Burkhardt, a member of the European Parliament. Ms. Burkhardt could not be here today, but she didn't want to miss the opportunity to speak to the young people that have gathered here. So she has kindly provided us with a video message. We can play it now. I cannot hear anything. I don't know if there is a problem with the technical.
Hello, do you hear me? Hey, sorry for the delay. I had some troubles.
No worries. We're just gonna listen now to the recording of Ms. Delara Burkhardt, and we were actually having some issues with the sound. So
okay.
Just mute yourself now for the panel, and we're gonna go ahead and try again.
Today on circular economy, and that our voices, your young voices, are heard in the European institutions. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you today in person. We live in a throwaway society. We use the earth as if its natural resources were infinitely available, but that is not the case. The resources are limited, and the earth is obviously reaching its limits. To a large extent, Europe's current economic model is based on a take, make, consume, dispose pattern of growth. This linear model is based on the assumption that resources and energy are abundant, available, and cheap to dispose of. We produce a huge amount of quantity of waste every year, and we throw this waste away for good. We need to change the narrative in our industries from cradle to grave, from cradle to cradle. The constant downward pressure on social and environmental standards is leading to more and more social inequalities and environmental devastation. The circular economy has to play a major part in managing the transition towards a social, economic, environmental, sustainable society. The Green Deal that we put in place has, however, a different angle of solutions and delivers certain answers with the Circular Economy Action Plan published last year, just before the global pandemic hit Europe. The worldwide pandemic has just shown us in a very dramatic way how important it is that we need a systemic shift. Global consumption of materials such as biomass, fossil fuels, metals, minerals is expected to double in the next 40 years, while annual waste generation is projected to increase by 70% by 2050. Half of total greenhouse gas emissions and more than 90% of biodiversity loss are due to resource extraction and processing. What we want to do with the circular economy is to recycle waste to obtain raw materials and also make sure that products are designed to last and can be reused and recycled in order to have a higher value in their entire life cycle. This means that waste has a value, that waste is not a burden anymore, but becomes an economic asset. If it is an economic asset, it means that we will pay more attention to it, both when we recycle at home and also when companies begin their manufacturing process. And this means that we will create new jobs and create economic value, which is especially for our generation and the next one's essential. Europe must move to a circular model of production and consumption that respects our planet's limits. Without a functioning circular economy, we cannot achieve climate neutrality and thus stop climate change. We therefore need binding rules which guarantee a responsible use of our raw materials worldwide. We need an approach which starts with the design. That is why we need a right to repair, for example, and a law against planned defects in products. About 80% of environmental impacts are consequences of the design phase. So we need to design products and processes from the beginning in such a way that waste and pollution do not occur in the first place. So the solution cannot be to constantly develop new smartphones for the only reason of giving people a new reason to buy. But we need products that are newly developed with the aim of being sustainable. Innovation through sustainability and not progress through production for the ton. That's why we need you, ambitious visionaries who work for a fair and circular transition. Your voice must be heard. We should definitely present your ideas and results to the environmental committee. I really would like that, and other related committees that work on the subject. So we need a constant exchange to policymakers like myself will listen to your demands and solutions. So very sad that I'm not there, but I wish you a successful conference and I'm always available for your questions and hopefully see you soon.
Okay. Yeah, I want to thank Mrs. Burkhardt for providing such an insightful and inspiring message, which I am sure will nourish our conversations and our exchanges today. I am now delighted to give the floor to Cillian Lohan, the Vice President of the European Economic and Social Committee. So please welcome.
Thank you, and thanks for the invite to be here today. I'm conscious that you've got a very tight schedule and you have a lot on the agenda, which looks very exciting and really well structured, I think, in order to get something concrete out of today. So I'll try and be very brief, although my experience with EU-related matters is when anyone says at the start of a speech they're going to be brief, you can, get comfortable. It's going to be a long one. So I'll try not to fulfill the cliche. As you said, my name's Cillian Lohan. I'm the Vice President of the European Economic and Social Committee, an advisory institution to the other EU institutions. And there we give feedback of organized civil society to the other institutions as legislation is being formed. And part of our work in doing that was to respond to the Circular Economy Action Plan, the first one that came out at the end of 2015. And in that opinion, we suggested establishing a platform that allowed for stakeholders to engage with the circular economy. That's gone from strength to strength and is the basis of today's event, really. Generation Climate Europe have got together as a member of the coordination group of that platform to organize this circular talk. So as a member of the committee who's been heavily involved in the establishment and functioning of that, I'm really delighted that you've organized this event and that you've got such a good group of people together in order to try and make sure your voices are heard and that you have an impact on the conversation. And I hope that we can take your outputs through this institution and feed it into the processes also. I'd also like to welcome Biliana Sirakova, who's the new EU Youth Coordinator. I watched her presentation on a YouTube video this morning, and I think that's a very exciting new position that the Commission has created, and it's exciting to have somebody with the profile and experience of Biliana in that position, and I'm sure we all look forward to cooperating with her and exploiting the role that has been created to ensure that we have that kind of structural chance to input into the conversation. Within the Economic and Social Committee, we do a lot of work with youth engagement. And indeed, from another one of these reports or opinions that we did, that I led on structured youth engagement on climate and sustainability in the EU decision-making process, I argue that we should have a structured engagement, that it isn't just kind of ad hoc conversations that we have, and so I hope we'll be able to make an announcement on that soon, to have an engagement with the Commission on youth voices being heard. So I think today is all part of that. And for me, the most important thing is that we don't all talk to each other, you know, a room full of people who agree generally on what we should be doing and where we should be going, and then we all turn off our screens or go home and carry on. So I love, Eugenia, that you've mentioned in your opening remarks there, the plan already to take the output from today and to ensure there's something concrete coming from that. So when we get to the end of the day and we have those outputs, I'd love to work with you and help in whatever way we can to ensure that output is heard and that it has an impact for the change that we all want to see. So good luck with the session today, and I look forward to silently being in the background and maybe inputting whenever there's an opportunity. Thanks a million.
Thank you so much for all that you've said, and for this platform and for everything you do. So thank you for being here today and for your contribution. And now we're a little bit behind on schedule, so I will directly move on to the next item on the agenda. We have the honor today to be joined by three remarkable speakers composing our panel. Now I'm going to ask each of you to quickly introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and what you do before we start with the questions we have prepared. Oh, sorry. Let's start with William. William Neal.
Thank you very much, Virginia. I was going to say let's go for ladies first, but so yes, I'm William Neal. As you can see, if you compare my photograph to my beard now, I've been developing a COVID beard. I think Cillian can say the same too. I'm a bit of an endangered species in the European Commission. I'm a British official, but although my passport says I'm British, I'm first and foremost European and of course a world citizen. I've worked in the Commission for 20 years. I just got my medal for 20 years service. I started working out on industry and enterprise policy, particularly on social economy and cooperatives. Then I went to work on science and research, and a little bit on development aid, and in the last few years on environment. And I worked in cabinets of 2 European commissioners for environment in the past. So I would certainly encourage anybody out there who's looking for a varied and exciting career in an international environment to consider coming to the European Commission. I think it offers all of that. I've been involved in the development of the circular economy at European level from the beginning. It's nearly 10 years ago now that we developed our first ideas, and I'm now working in DG Environment, Directorate General for Environment of the Commission, as an advisor on circular economy. We have 3 units in my directorate, one which is dealing with sustainable production and consumption, one which is dealing with chemicals, and one which is dealing with waste. And we manage instruments like the EU Eco-Label, green public procurement, product environmental footprinting. We manage the waste legislation and the chemicals legislation, but we also link with a lot of other parts of the Commission, of course, and with the other institutions. Today, my main role is implementing the Circular Economy Action Plan, and at the moment, I'm working a lot on the post-pandemic recovery and resilience plans coming from the member states, trying to make sure they're circular. On the financial taxonomy, so trying to make sure that green finance is directed towards really bona fide, truly circular actions. And then I'm working a lot on the digital product passport with the idea to enable critical data for sustainability to be actually attached to products as they go through their life cycle. Sorry if that was a bit long, but that's my resume.
No, thank you so much for your introduction. Let's move to Robina now. Robina Fonstein. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Virginie. Yeah, I'm Robina. I'm very happy to be here today and talk also with all the young students about the future of circular economy. I'm the founder of Rent, which is a fashion tech startup which actually focuses on increasing the longevity and durability of garments. So we basically, I mean, as I think everybody knows, as rental and leasing models as part of circular economy, an important driver for fashion, which is one of the biggest polluter worldwide, and really has an overproduction, overconsumption problem, and we really try to solve a bit like William said already with passports. So data information is one key component, then logistic transportation, and we also work with repair and recycling methods. So really in order to have a full circular closing loop system for fashion brands at the moment. Of course, we want to integrate more categories, not only fashion, but at the moment we are focusing on this area. And yes, I'm very excited to be here today.
Thank you so much. And now let's hear from our last speaker, Mridul Parikh, who also kindly accepted to join us today. So Mridul, please.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And hello, everyone. And thanks for joining in for this event. And also thanks to GCE for organizing this awesome professional looking event. I'm really excited. First of all, my name is Mridul, as you said. And I'm finishing my second master's here in Belgium with a specialization in circular societies. You might think, what is circular societies? So it's basically circular economy, but a particular attention goes to management of societal changes, where you align your priorities with the Sustainable Development Goals. So you look at different flows and exchanges, but you also look at how society is interacting with it. So you don't just look at materials, but you also look at how information and money is flowing between different actors and activities. For example, recently I just wrapped up my thesis study. I'm really happy about it, where I wanted to find out how a circular economy can be introduced into the supply chain of solar photovoltaics industry in Europe. So I think it was really something that I really cherish and something which is really close to my heart, that everyone asks this question about solar panels and wind turbines, like what's going to happen to it? We need them for energy transition, but what do you do with the waste? So yeah, my idea and my thesis was a part of a larger project called Circusol. And we are trying to find out what can be new business models for these second life photovoltaics in Europe. Apart from that, I also participate in a lot of local student organizations. One of our recent project was on valorizing the waste coffee grounds into making something which is more upcycled. So how can we create value from waste coffee grounds? So yeah, there's a lot of hands-on activities going on here and there, and I'm really excited to share them as well, my experience from there during the panel discussion. And I really look forward to the event and learning from actually the other two people in the panel discussion. I think I have a lot to learn from them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mridul, and thank you all three for joining today. We're really delighted to have you here. So let's start with the questions. This first one is for all of you. You've already talked about the circular economy in your own areas, but how would you shortly define it in a few words, what the circular economy is and what is to each of you, the most effective driver of action to succeed in the shift to circularity? Let's start with William.
Thanks, Virginia. I can define it in 2 words if you like. For me, it's value retention. But to go into a bit more detail, I think a good way to think of it is to imagine that all of the resources flowing through our economy are a bit like a river. And Mridul was just talking about flows just now. And basically all of those resources, they flow into our economy as bioresources, metals, minerals, chemicals, and so on. And then they flow out of the other end, and then they're lost forever as waste or emissions. And it's what we do with them in between that provides well-being and value and profits. So whilst they're in our economy, they're embodied in products, in buildings, in infrastructure, in machinery, and all other kinds of assets which give us that well-being. Some of that lasts for decades, and some of it we just use for a few minutes. Some is used intensively, and some of it spends a lot of its time not being used or doesn't get used at all. And I think we have 4 circular possibilities to maximize that well-being and to maximize what we get out of those materials when they are functional. The first is to sort of narrow the flows. So that means being more resource efficient. So, I mean, we've seen how labor productivity was driven by higher labor prices, and normally rising resource prices and scarcities should drive increased resource productivity. And there are big opportunities there. I mean, I heard that in a modern building, you could probably use about 30% less cement and steel, for example. The second thing you can do, which for me is maybe even more important, is to slow down the flows. And the idea is to make the products and assets last longer. So you design them to be more durable. You make sure that the spares are available and the services are there to upgrade and to repair and to refurbish and so on. And the third would be regenerative flows. So here using more renewables, using bio-based resources, and trying to eliminate some of the toxic and hazardous chemicals that we use. And finally, we can recycle. We can recuperate residual value from used products and assets once they've finished their useful life and put them back into the economy. And there's a common misconception, actually. I think when you're talking about the definition of circular economy, there's a common misconception that it's all about recycling and we can do what we want as long as we recycle. But it's really a last resort. I mean, we need to capture that value before products have become waste as much as possible, even if it's components rather than just the materials. And I think what we have to try and do in effect is make that river more like a lake. We have to keep the value in for as long as possible. I think all 4 of those flows have an economic logic, and they really involve challenging the linear model, which is based on shifting stuff, as the MEP was saying at the beginning, the take, make, use, dispose model. When it comes to drivers, I don't know if I'm going on for a bit too long, tell me, Eugenia, but when it comes to drivers, I think that the ultimate driver is nothing to do with the European Commission or policymakers or anything. The ultimate driver is the global acceleration in resource consumption. I don't think it's not a policy choice. We're not saying, oh, we don't like linear anymore, we want to go circular. The scarcities and the dependencies and the pressures on resource and climate change and extinction of species all mean that we don't have a choice, and it's going to go that way. And as the MEP was saying, it's driving 90% of biodiversity loss, at least half of our climate problems. So, and I think Europe is actually particularly vulnerable because we're so dependent on those external sources of resources. So our Circular Economy Action Plan, we set out to double our circular material use rate by 2030. And what we need to do that is to set the right framework conditions. We don't have a choice in moving to circularity. Where we have a policy choice is to try to make that a smooth transition, try to provide the right framework conditions to incentivize it. And I think the real drivers will be the producers and the consumers and the actors all along the value chains. But it is very different, and I'm sure Robina will be able to testify to this, that it's very difficult being a lone circular actor in a linear world, in a linear value chain with linear markets, linear regulations, and so on. So what we're trying to do is, in our circular economy action plan, is first focus on the systemic and holistic approaches to value chains. We did this already with our plastic strategy in 2018, and it really proved that it's worthwhile trying to combine regulatory, the right legal framework with clear direction to give investor confidence and a level playing field, but also getting the economics right. The clue is really in the name, it's circular economy. It's about getting the economics right to ensure that you get the steady public and private demand and investment, and by bridging some of the split incentives along the value chain. So the first is really systemic approach. The second is our focus on products. And for the first time ever, I think it's really powerful actually, the first time ever we're using single market regulations to do environment policy, to drive sustainability. So we have a proposal which we'll adopt later this year for a sustainable product initiative. And the idea here is to get rid of the most damaging and worst performing products off our markets. So the idea is that we expand our eco-design directive, we apply it to everything from furniture to fashion, from buildings to soap, and then we apply sustainability criteria, and we don't allow people to sell things on European markets which don't meet those criteria. And as you know, the public consultation on that is open at the moment. I know that Generation Climate Europe is active on that and is providing input.
Indeed, yeah. And sorry to cut you, but we're running a little bit out of time.
Okay, I'll stop there.
Yeah, I was wondering if perhaps Robina, since you already asked her, like, do you have any comments to what William said?
Yeah, I think it's a good introduction, and I also don't want to go too long because I think it was until 1:35 or something.
35, but perhaps we can take 5 more minutes. Yeah.
And I don't have that much time, but yeah, I think I don't have to give a definition of circular economy because I think we have this already. But yeah, from a practical experience, what are really drivers for the circular economy? I think first of all, what we can see, we have a lot of end users, customers, and also venture capitalists who are interested in transforming the economy. I think what we really need is political incentives, so really guidelines, circular design guidelines, or the right to repair, to really support people, the government, but also the economy to really transform. And the second is infrastructure. So this means, on the one hand, having a good system, from the data economy, which helps really to understand, okay, here is part one, this is circular design. What is within this product? Then we need the infrastructure of resell, rental, recycle, and then we need the end-of-life infrastructure. We really have to develop and cooperate. I think cooperation and infrastructure is something which is really important. And the third part is capital. Capital in order to really transform the industry and build up the infrastructure. That's are my 3 points, I would say, a drive of action.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. And Mridu, unless you have a remark there, I would go on and ask you the second question now.
I do have a really quick remark.
Okay.
So I think William rightly mentioned like a great definition of like how circular economy should look like or how it is defined. I wanted to say that like how I see it is that like we have limited resources in this planet, but the potential in terms of well-being of the society is unlimited. So we don't have to limit the well-being of the society, even though we have limited resources. And that's how I see a circular economy being in practice, where you can decouple economic growth from resource use in a more scholarly way, kind of a definition. And one thing which I think is most effective is collaboration. I think that's one of the things which I would put at the top. And I think William also mentioned it, that if everyone is doing it, then it becomes easier and faster to achieve the same goals around it.
Indeed, yeah, we totally agree. And yeah, it's for us at GCE, we also think that involving the youth as an inspiration to change the system with examples of good practices and awareness raising is also a key driver of action. And this is actually one of the reasons, if not the main reason, why we are doing this event here today, right? Which actually brings me to the next question, because in the last 2 years, especially, young people have been showing their rising concerns for the environment and for sustainability issues. But do you feel that this engagement applies also in the context of the circular economy? Of course, outside of your own networks, of the three of you that are obviously engaged in these topics, what do you think? For example, like you can continue, Mridu, since you...
Yeah, sure. I think that's a really pertinent question. And the answer is both yes and no. No, because I personally don't really see that much activities being out in public compared to climate change when it comes to circular economy. Of course, climate change is a bigger goal and a bigger umbrella, and circular economy is a part of it. That's how I see it. So yeah, it is a larger issue, climate change indeed. And why I said yes was that we still do see happening a lot of things, but there's no label around it that's circular economy. And like talking about young people, like in my group and even outside the group, I do see that there's like new ideas being adapted. For example, I have a lot of friends who are talking about slow fashion or using refurbished electronics or products. It's like the market of, if you look at like really the market of refurbishing or repairing, that's really going up. Sharing of assets, it's also something that's really going up now. And this is something which is being introduced in new things, and new people there's a demand for it. And that's why it's growing, right? So I do see that like there are like these rising concerns and rising actions, but we need to also see that everything is interconnected. It's not really, you cannot look at just one thing and the other thing in like separation. But at the end, I think there's also like youth entrepreneurs who are making new circular companies. I see new companies being out there, and I think they really like deserve a push from like people who have the power to push them and give them a nice accelerated drive around it.
Indeed, yeah, that's a perfect point, because now I would like to direct that to Robina, because you own a circular business. So what drove you personally to start your business in this topic?
Yeah, I think first of all, also regarding to the question before, I actually see, so we started the company in 2018, and I actually see a big or growing interest of also young people in circular economy. I think when we started actually 3 years ago, it was not that booming. I mean, I see this because we get constantly like requests from students to write thesis with our company together, or doing an internship and so on. So I think there's really a growing interest into circular economy also. And also I think from the venture capitalists, you see it a lot going on there at the moment. So what drives me personally, yeah, I think like we all agree on that this linear economy model doesn't really work anymore. I really have 1 second. I have to go on this ring bell because I didn't know from the timing that we are so stiff. I have to go quickly, but I come back and then we can talk maybe about the next question. Sorry.
Okay. Yes, no problem. I actually wanted to comment on that because also there has been some comments on the chat. Indeed, the link between the climate change and the environment and circular economy is not always obvious for many people, but we are also at a key stage in the transition where we need to make sure that this transition to a circular economy happens in the right way, and that we achieve a really sustainable circular economy, and that we don't fall again into this spiral of just recycling products and coming up with new products that are from recycled materials and falling into this spiral of overproduction and overconsumption again. I think that's really important. So go ahead, Robina, you can finish what you were saying.
Yeah, just that I think I think it's especially in the fashion industry, but we see this in a lot of different industries also, that we have a consumption dilemma. I mean, we constantly need or are in desire to buy new garments because that's how we are educated actually. But then on the second, you have like a closet full of garments or a house full of products, and you're really like, you don't have actually space to store it anymore. And that's how we are coming up with the idea of renting, and then it really developed into starting to think about how we have actually to change the production process, and then in the end, how we can actually transfer the end of life, and there's no waste anymore. And I think that's what drives me a lot, this motivation that we build an industry which cut waste out of the system.
Yeah. Okay, so now we are way over our timing, but perhaps, Cillian, you can say in 2 sentences some remarks about this last question that we've asked Myrtle and Robina.
Yeah, I mean, I think the links between climate and circularity are really underestimated, and young people, I think, had a major effect, a major influence in bringing the climate debate to the center of European debate and the European elections 18 months ago. I think the climate marches were really important in bringing that debate to the table, and very central in actually making sure that the Green Deal became such a priority as it has done. It shows that democracy really works in Europe for all of the gaps and criticisms. But I think that the beauty of the circularity means that you can get involved and you can act in many other ways. You don't have to wait for elections every 5 years. As consumers, as economic actors, and you can really drive change. And the thing is, it's so creative. I mean, somebody put in a comment, we need mindset change. Mindset change is crucial. It is, and I think that it's really going to come from young people, because these ideas, I think, are really very much, they are a mindset change. They're a very different way of doing everything. And things like, I mean, we have the Bauhaus project of the new Bauhaus, which has been launched by President van der Leyen, which is all about design, and we're trying to push circularity in that. I think it's really so creative, and I think young people have a very important part to play in that, because it's not those that aren't going to change that are going to make the difference.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Okay, so we have 2 minutes now before we go into the breakout rooms. Perhaps Myrtle, you can answer like a short last question. That's how do you picture the European landscape with regards to circularity in 10 years from now?
Sure. Thanks for the question. I would say definitely the overall circularity will increase. Globally, I think right now it's around 9%, if you have to put a number to it. And I see, like, from the side of academia, because that's what I'm representing now, there will be more and more knowledge being created in the coming years, so that we will have sufficient evidence for financing newer business models, and people will be more aware. Investors will have confidence, the government will have confidence based on this knowledge that is being created right now by us right now here as well. But I still see that a lot of companies right now are still focusing on how they can reduce their environmental impact, rather than radically changing to a business model that's more appropriate for today's world. And this is, I know this is hard to change because of the incumbency, but we still see like transition still like slowly happening. And this needs to be further accelerated. And I think that's where the EU has to come in to provide support, take a lead in this front, and educate and aware also, like, from top down.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here today and for providing such important and diverse views on the circular economy. I think it's very important to hear multiple perspectives when you discuss the same topic, and you have definitely provided us with that thanks to your different backgrounds. So now, after setting the scene and discussing the state of play of the circular economy in Europe, it is now the time to launch the workshops. So during the breakout sessions, you will have the chance to discuss concrete opportunities for the youth to engage in one of the 4 priority sectors that we have identified, which are textiles, digitalization, food, and energy. Now you will automatically, hopefully, be allocated to a breakout room. And we followed as much as possible the preference you indicated in the registration form. But please let us know if you have any trouble accessing them. We will be here for you. And just a reminder again that the workshops will last until 2:15, and then we will all come back to the plenary for the concluding remarks and a very special message from the European Commission.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, now everyone should be being allocated. Yes. Okay.
We don't hear you, Cillian.
Okay. Etienne, can you allocate Cillian and Peter John and yeah, the couple of other people that are still here? On the meantime, I will direct a little message to the viewers on YouTube. The concluding remarks will be live streamed too, even though the breakout sessions will not. And we thank you all for your interest, and we invite you to follow us on social media channels. Then again, our reflection paper for this event will be released at the beginning of September, so stay tuned, and I wish you all a good day. Okay.
Eugenia, maybe I didn't. I think I probably didn't sign up for any of the breakout rooms. I'm not sure, but I don't know who's responsible for throwing me into it.
I'm doing it. Do you want to be in digitalization, energy, food, or textile?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind jumping into the food one. Maybe.
Okay.
Unfortunately, at some point I'll have to turn off my
choice.
camera and take a phone call. But I'd love to have a listen to the food one for a while.
Okay, you're
Perfect.
going.
Yeah, Etienne, can you take
Thank
it?
you.
Perfect. And yes, let's just like now divide the three of us. Can you also put Gaia somewhere?
Yeah, I'm doing it. She asked energy.
Okay, thank you, Etienne. And put me in text cells, please. Okay, everyone should be coming back now. It's 2:15. Okay, I think that some breakout rooms pushed it 60 seconds more, so let's wait for everyone. Okay, now it looks like everyone's coming back. Welcome back, everyone. And yeah, I hope you had really interesting conversations and discussions in your breakout rooms. Since each of you could only attend one of the rooms, I will ask now our moderators to share the key message that came out of the workshop in a really short couple of sentences. Perhaps let's start with Pauline, since she was the first one to be here. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. So I was in the digitalization breakout room. So I think the key message, what came out of this room, is that circular digitalization is not only making the supply chain circular, but it's also about consuming less and consuming better. And to do that, we have to question the economy we live in and we contribute to, the way we consume, and also the way we want to take back control to our lives. Maybe question how much digitalization is part of our lives today. And to do so, we have many opportunities, starting with day-to-day choices when we buy our own products, but also engaging in dialogue and getting engaged in movements, or questioning also policymakers, etc. So we have many ways to get engaged and to make things change. And for a start, I share the link in the chat to the survey Generation Climate Europe has done on the digital product passport, and it would be a very great start to let us know what you think on this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pauline. Yes, indeed. I encourage everyone to go on the link if you haven't done that already and fill the survey. Let's go now to Soisik with textiles.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, textile. So we focused on fashion mainly, and so what is I think the thing that we can take from this session is that first we need a complete makeover of the way fashion is made nowadays. We just the system and the business model cannot just continue like that and say, okay, we just need some small changes to be circular. It needs to be really makeover completely. But there is also fear from consumer about greenwashing issue, and also there is the issue of the price, because we are so used to having that clothes that are really cheap that we don't really know the real price of clothing. So there was also this kind of contradiction between the fact that we need a makeover, but people are not maybe ready yet. But yeah, also something to take from it, that as consumer, we have a really huge power, and as young people also to get engaged in this and promote circular ways and use some circular platforms such as renting clothes or things like that, buy secondhand, and we have a real power in this to transition to a circular economy. So yeah, I think it's all.
Thank you, Soisik. Let's hear now from Niels from the food breakout room.
Yeah, so I think the two main key takeaways that we had from the food breakout room was that it's to achieve circularity in terms of food production and consumption, it's about the individual and the system. in that it takes individual behavioral change to have a concrete direct impact in the way that we affect greenhouse gas emissions and local productions, but it's also about structural change. And so that's certainly what we've seen in terms of on the entrepreneurial side, seeing more and more companies coming into the playing field, trying to integrate more circularity, which is what we've seen here with Too Good To Go, and also at the European level, as we discussed in the breakout room, we need more policy that frames circularity in a clear way and that can be applicable across all regions and across all actors. So yeah, those are the two main takeaways.
Thank you. That's perfect. And now finally, Sarai from the energy room.
Yes, thank you. So we discussed a lot about the energy sector and how we can make it more circular. And the biggest conclusion that we can take is that on the one hand, we have, just throughout the whole supply chain, there are a lot of responsibilities that we need to take as a consumer, but also on the different kind of levels. So also the companies, but also the politicians within on the national level, on a more European level. And of course that we need to keep in mind that we need to match the amount and the supply on the both sides, so the demand and the supply. And of course that the producers and buyers can come closer together and find solutions to make the energy sector more sustainable or greener. This makes it possible to have a lot of initiatives, that a lot of improvement, there's a room for a lot of improvements, but we need to think about ways that we can work together on different kind of levels to make the energy sector more sustainable. That was kind of it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this all sounds really interesting. I'm sorry, I'm sad I could only join one of the rooms. And yeah, thank you so much for moderating the sessions, and to all the participants for their contributions and for being here. And now we are honored to present a very special message from Commissioner Virginijus Sinkevičius himself. So let's see if this time works fine at the first try.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to this EU Circular Talks event. Last year, I had the pleasure to launch these talks as a new feature of the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform. Just several months later, a dozen EU Circular Talks have taken place, and more than 20 are being planned. This is excellent news, because we cannot achieve a circular economy on our own. We need all stakeholders on board, and we need you. That's why this event, putting youth engagement in the focus, is very important to me. To solve the problems of the past, we need the solutions of the future. Young people are naturally the ones to bring about these solutions. I'm especially happy to see Generation Climate Europe on board of the European Circular Economy Platform as a new coordination group member. We need your energy, your strength, and your commitment in order to advance the environmental agenda. I have learned that solving environmental problems is like passing a quite difficult exam. It requires inspiration, cooperation, hard work, and persistence. But then, when we pass it, we all get points. We score for our planet, for people, and for prosperity. The circular economy is one of those tests that we have to pass to get a license for operating in a sustainable future. And so that's why it's important that some of the lessons are taught by youth, the future entrepreneurs, innovators, consumers, and decision makers. And this is not only about the future. You have a key role now. Politicians listen to you because you stood up and put climate on top of the agenda. Companies listen to you too because you are the consumers, workers, and entrepreneurs of today and tomorrow. Your role to drive the agenda forward and be ambassadors for the circular economy is crucial. At the European Commission, we have been preparing the ground. The latest scientific evidence does not leave any room for hesitation. We need to act now. It takes 25 years, a generation, to transform an industrial sector and all the value chains. Thus, to be ready in 2050, decisions and actions need to be taken in the next 5 years. More than 90% of biodiversity loss and water stress and half of the greenhouse gas emissions come from resource extraction and processing. There is only one planet Earth, And yet by 2050, the world will be consuming as there is 3. Global consumption of materials such as biomass, fossil fuels, metals, and minerals is expected to double in the next 40 years. These challenges are daunting, and they point to rough waters ahead of us, but we have a compass and a plan to avert the crisis. At the beginning of our mandate, we launched the European Green Deal, and an armada of initiatives have followed. One of the flagships we adopted last year is the new Circular Economy Action Plan for a cleaner and more competitive and circular Europe. It's a plan for an economy that gives to the planet more than it takes. It proposes a model to reduce our footprint on the environment and to double Europe's circular material use rate in the coming decade. To address the triple environmental crisis, climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, we need to change how we produce and consume. We need to avoid waste altogether as much as possible. This is the only way to build a stronger and more resilient future. An important pathway in this action plan is to transform how we design products in Europe. We need products that are more circular and resource efficient, that lead to less waste and that leave a lighter impact on the environment throughout their life cycle. We call this the Sustainable Products Initiative. We will focus on several key product value chains with high potential for circularity. Among them, electronics and ICT, textiles and food. Design for reuse and new circular consumption patterns will be specifically important for many product categories. Circular economy measures in the food system can cut greenhouse gas emissions by half by 2050. The example of textiles shows that if each garment is used twice as many times before disposal, 49% of greenhouse gas emissions will be mitigated. More efficient use of resources and reuse is also cheaper for companies and for consumers too. We need also sustainable and resilient business models, consumption patterns which are low carbon, circular and kinder to nature, and new ways to empower consumers in the green transition. In the latest EU Barometer survey, climate change and the growing amount of waste were the 2 top environmental issues considered the most important by EU citizens. That's why we have put climate and environment at the core of our post-COVID recovery efforts. The unprecedented stimulus the EU created, Next Generation EU, the twin green and digital transition will create the fertile ground from which many future opportunities will emerge. We look forward to hearing your ever stronger voices how to best shift to a circular, future-proof economy. Many thanks for your collaboration. Let's keep in touch.
Okay. Yeah, I want to thank again Commissioner Sinkevičius for his message and for his trust in the youth of Europe. As he says, there is no room for hesitation. We need to act now. The awareness on the urgency to shift to a more circular economy is increasing among citizens, among economic actors and policymakers. Now, what we need is ambitious actions. We believe at EESC that young people's engagement is one of the key drivers to change, and with so many inspiring initiatives and examples of this today here. And of course, another key is dialogue. And so we are really grateful for the creation of the Youth Circular Talks, which offer a great platform for exchange, to discuss solutions and to encourage the required changes that we need. Finally, I want to thank you all again for your participation, for the speakers, the moderators, the participants, everyone that was here today. I would like to remind our participants as well that you can keep engaging in this discussion until the end of June in our LinkedIn group that we will share again on the chat right now, and that your inputs on this group, on this discussion, will serve for the writing of our reflection paper that will reflect all your inputs by the end of September. We will publish it from GCE. And I finally kindly invite you to follow us on social media and to stay tuned for our news and for our new projects. And again, thank you and have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and thanks, Eugenia. Great job.
Thanks,
bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.